All right. If you remember, last week, we began learning a speech of the Lubavitcher Rebbe about that he made in 1991, which was not long before he had a stroke that debilitated him, and he wasn't able to speak afterwards. And this was in this week's Torah portion, talking about this week's Torah portion, and it was a preparation for the holiday of Shavuot. So I'll just make a short summary of what we learned before. So it says regarding Shavuot, the Jewish people, that's the holiday when the Jewish people received the Torah. So that was really just sort of the beginning of a long process of Hashem revealing his will to the Jewish people. Now, what he revealed when he gave the Torah will never be changed. The commandments will never be changed. You can't add to the commandments, you can't subtract to the commandments. One of the commandments is that the rabbis, providing they're genuine rabbis and their criteria according to the Torah, that they can sometimes add on their own laws. They just have to make it clear that it's a rabbinical law, that it's not their own law. So they're not really adding to the Torah laws. And rarely is it, I don't know, maybe if ever, that the rabbis subtracted a law. I have to look on this, but generally speaking, the rabbis only added on extra laws like the laws of muktzah and laws of things that some making things forbidden to eat and forbidden the things that the rabbis added on what they call fences and things like that. Good. So it says there's a prophecy in Prophet Isaiah. The prophecy of Isaiah says the Torah is going to come from me. So simple meaning, Torah is going to come from me, that the Mashiach will be a person that's going to teach everybody Torah. But the Midrash says, Torah chadasha me'itititze. It's going to be a new Torah that's going to come from me. So the Rebbe says, how can this possibly be a new Torah? I mean, it says clearly that the Torah is never going to be changed. And even more, it says, lo b'shamayim, that the Torah is not from heaven. And it says, well, the Mashiach is going to make a new Torah. And the way is because he's going to be a big genius. And he's also going to be a prophet. So the Rebbe says, okay, big genius, that's good. You know, if he's a big genius, then it means that maybe he can, you know, understand new, deep Kabbalistic ideas. He says, no, there's going to be new laws. New laws. What type of new laws is it going to be? He says, well, for instance, there's going to be this big fight between this huge fish called Leviathan and this huge ox, which is called the Shur Habor. Is it going to be spiritual? Is it going to be physical? From this, it's I mean, for sure, spiritual, for sure it's going to be. But it seems that it's going to be a physical. And it says that the fish will slaughter the ox with its fins. And the righteous Jews, or maybe all the righteous of all mankind, will have a meal from this ox. So the Rebbe says, hey, you can't do that. It's not a kosher slaughtering. There's laws of how do you have to slaughter. These are laws from the Torah, that the knife has to be smooth and it's supposed to be sharp and etc. So it says it's going to be a new Torah. Mashiach is going to make a new Torah. So the Rebbe says, well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. He's going to be a prophet. That's what the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, okay, we got to stop this, says the Rebbe. This makes absolutely no sense. We have to understand what's going on over here. Second, see, it says the Hebrew books has been stopped because it's on the URL blacklist. I don't know. I don't get it. What could be wrong with that? Just got a lot of book. Maybe the Yetzer Hora put on blacklist because it's endangering the Yetzer Hora. I don't know. Anyway, go. I don't know if you just saw that pop up. It just popped up. Explain why I can't access this Hebrew books thing, which is so just valuable to me. Okay. So the Rebbe says, no, the Mashiach is not going to reveal anything new. It's just these laws were hidden. They were deeply, deeply, deeply hidden in the Torah. When God gave the Torah, he gave everything, and Mashiach is going to be, and God is going to reveal these new laws. Okay, I mean, you can also ask, that's such a big deal. I mean, we're waiting for Mashiach to know that a fish can slaughter an ox. Well, that's the whole thing of Mashiach. We'll understand that. That's also a question. Says the Rebbe, there's also other things according to law. First of all, we see in the Torah that there's a law that says that when God, and the Rambam brings this down, Maimonides, that nowadays there's only 6 what's called cities of refuge. Cities of refuge are places where someone who kills someone accidentally, there's a lot of laws of that, so that's sort of vague, but someone who kills someone else accidentally, a Jew, who kills another Jew accidentally, but there's a certain element of negligence involved, as he can't be killed because he didn't do it on purpose, but on the other hand, he can't go free because there was this element of negligence. So he runs what's called to a city of refuge. So it says there's now presently 6 cities of refuge. It says in the Torah that in the future, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be 3 more cities of refuge. So that's a new law. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be 3 more cities. Okay, there's another example the Rebbe brings. Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel, the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel. The school of Shammai, the pupils there were very, very smart, tremendously sharp. The pupils of Hillel were also very sharp, and they're also very smart. It says, but they were more easygoing. And Shammai, they were sharp. They didn't let anything go past. They were very strict in law. He says, now the law is not like Beit Shammai. It's not like Beit Shammai. But when Mashiach comes, the law is going to be like Beit Shammai. And there's all those old laws that were decided according to Beit Hillel are going to be overturned, and they're going to be like Beit Shammai. How can that be? If the law is determined according to Beit Hillel, and we're talking about these are Torah laws, how to interpret Torah laws. Right? There are certain laws which are given to Moses on Mount Sinai, and certain laws which God gave, and he gave the principles by which they have to be interpreted. That's called the mitzvah of learning Torah. Part of the mitzvah of learning Torah. So how can the law be changed? Okay, so the Rebbe says, that's what we got up to, remember? So the Rebbe says like this, but Torah, in Torah, Yeshnam, there are, B'chalalut in general, Beit Inyanim, 2 things. First of all, the Torah is a chamuda ganuza, ksheganzu l'cha. This is what's called the hidden treasure. We did this last time. I'm just going over. There's a hidden treasure which God is giving to you. Okay, thank you. I'm going to tune into this in a minute. But let's just finish this now. Great, wonderful. You get a special prize, a star. When in the 2nd grade, we used to get a star stuck on our forehead if we were good pupils. This is the Torah, which is the wisdom of God. This is how the Torah is the Torah of God, but it came down to the world. Came down into the world. That's the Chem de Ganuza. That's the concealed Torah. It's only God's. And then Natati La'oretz, that I put down into the earth. And that God, part of the Torah are the secrets, the inside of the Torah, that this is the godliness of the Torah. And then there's the other part of the Torah, aspect of the Torah, which comes into the world in order to fix up the world. Whether by doing something good or by knowing what to avoid, positive and negative commandments. Or more detail, the difference between Torah and the commandments. The Torah is the wisdom of God. The commandments, positive commandments and prohibitions, these are what a person should do. Now, let's get those whole things straight. We've got to get the whole thing straight. What Judaism is. Judaism says that God is creating the world from nothing. And he's purposely creating the world in such a way that it has to be fixed up. Why God is doing this, I don't know, but that's what God is doing. That's the fact. We're right. It's like go to an anatomy class, a doctor or whatever is not going to raise his hand and say, "Excuse me, professor, why is the brain in the head and the brain is not in the chest. I think that would be much better. The teacher would say, please leave the class. You're nuts. What are you talking about? What the brain is? That's the same thing. We have been given a certain situation. The situation is that God creates the world, and God made the world the way it is. And God put man in the world so that man would fix the world. And man is half world, half God. What reveals this inside of man? The Torah and the leader of the Jewish people, Moses. And what this says, Moses was half God, half man. Ish Elokim. The bottom part was Ish and the top part was Elokim. And that's true about every Jew. And eventually it's going to be true of the whole entire world. The whole entire world is just going to be filled with godliness. Okay, but that's the situation. That's what we've got. The Torah was given in order to link God with the world through the Jews. But to tell the Jews what to do, how to do it properly, and how to do it efficiently, what to avoid doing, what mistakes to avoid. That's the whole thing of the Torah. God wants to fix up the world, the physical world. That's what he wants. And all the heavens and things like that, they're all depending on us to fix up the world. Stop thinking about ourselves and think about our job, God and the world. Okay, so there's two aspects of the Torah. There's the hidden part of the Torah, which that's the godly part, and then there's the practical part. Similarly, also in the Torah itself, we can learn the Torah, learning the Torah as it is on its own. It has nothing to do with action. Yagdil Torah v'yadir, like these boys that sit in the yeshiva and they just learn Torah all day, and it doesn't come to any action. But that learning Torah and understanding it is a commandment. It's like the Holy Temple. In the Holy of Holies, nothing got done. The Holy of Holies, there was no action there. It didn't have any active effect that you could see on the world. Right in the outer part, in the holy, they lit the candles over there, and there was bread that they ate, and there was incense, and it was cooking, working out there, right? And the Holy of Holies, what was there? Nothing. You couldn't even go in. Absolutely quiet, zero going on in the Holy of Holies. And that was the center of all reality. From all that Holy of Holies came all of the dynamics and works and the laws of nature and physics and everything, and spiritual levels and things. It all came from there. So there's one aspect of the Torah which is just purely to learn the Torah. That's like in the Holy of Holies. And then there's learning Torah, which comes to action. Right? Learning the Torah, that's like the Shulchan Aruch, or the laws that come out. The limud chachmas, the Torah, when a person learns Torah on itself, hari zeh chiluk shebein nigla the Torah, nista the Torah. In learning the Torah, there's the revealed Torah and the hidden Torah. In the revealed Torah, this is stressed mainly what should be done in the world by means of details. Right? Somebody has a garment, and someone else claims, "Hey, that's my garment." What do? The Torah says exactly what to do. How the judge is supposed to judge. Are there any witnesses? What are the claims of each person? Are there any documents? How long is he held on to it? And etc. That's what's called things that are monetary laws, things that are permissible, things that are forbidden. Tomb of a Torah, impure, pure. Kosher of a puzzle, things that can be used and can't be used. Right? Your tefillin, what makes them, how do you say, not usable anymore. All the letters have to be right, etc. What makes the tzitzis kosher? What disqualifies them? So look, and therefore, it's called the Torah is called Ilana de Tovara. It's called the tree of good and evil. Eitz Hadat Tovara. That's the aspect of the Torah which deals with the good and the bad of the world, because it deals with purifying the good and bad in the world. Right? You look in the Gemara, especially look in the Talmud in Sanhedrin. It's talking about over there murderers and rapists and all sorts of bizarre things. Right? All sorts of different the decadence and things like that. And what are the punishments? Different types of idolatry, and the Gemara Avodah Zorah. What types of idolatry are there, and different types of idolatry, and then sorcery. What does the Torah want to deal with that, and all the details? says that the people in the Sanhedrin, they had to know all of the different types of sorcery and idolatry and things that these disgusting low things, so that they could judge properly. They had to know it was. So that's the aspect of the Torah that deals with good and bad. Lahavdil being apostle la'asr, to divide which is disqualified, etc., etc. And also, even in sheker, in things of lie, a person comes in and says, this land belongs to me, and he's a liar, and he brings false witnesses. How do you disprove the witnesses? What can you do? There's laws about that. In other words, the purpose of that, there's one aspect of the Torah called the tree of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil, and that comes to refine the world, to deal with evil and good. Things between people, Moshiach, which is not the case, the concealed aspect of the Torah, the hidden aspect of the Torah, that's called the Chai. That's called the tree of life. The Leis Talmud, there is no over there any bad whatsoever. Okay. Miruach Hatuma. Here, this lines should be added together. I don't know why they make these spaces. There's no side of bad from Ruach Hatuma, from the spirit of impurity. Cave and sins. She'eino sekas bebiru atovara. It's not working. The concealed aspect of the Torah is not dealing with good and bad. Now we're talking about genuine Kabbalistic things, not the Kabbalah Center or something like that, that's just the whole, how do you want to call it, a sham, basically. Ella, but we're talking about the spiritual aspect of the Torah. This talks about God. It's talking about God, to know the God of your fathers. Kabbalah is there in order to know God, to inspire you to do the commandments, to inspire you to do what God wants. But that's the God side of it. To recognize, understand, feel, value, appreciate, love, fear God. And the outer part of the Torah, that's to fix up the world. That's to fix up the world. And of course, God wants you to fix up the world. But you have to appreciate God, and you also have to know what's doing in the world. That's what the Rebbe said. Remember, look at three things and you won't come to do a sin. What are the three things? Yourself, you're in the middle, God, and the world. You have to connect to God and fix up the world. That's the whole thing of the Torah. The Torah enables us, the inside of the Torah that connects to God. The outside of the Torah enables us to work with the world. This is the whole difference between nowadays and the days of the Mashiach. Nowadays, the ikar of what our main service is, but birolam, to fix up the world. Shenasit the ikar that is made mainly by learning the Torah. Yeah. Shisha Sidri Mishnah, the 6 orders of the Mishnah, including all the arguments in the Talmud and in all of the what's called responsa, shailot v'tshuvos, laws, rishonim, achronim, right? The earlier great rabbis like Rashi and Rambam, and on the achronim and the latter rabbis, right? The rabbis from, let's say, I don't know, 200-300 years and less. B'Inyane Yisur V'Heter, Tum of Torah, etc., etc. All these arguments, that's in order to refine the world. To refine the world. But also these secrets of the Torah are also there in order to fix up the world. So you need the secrets of the Torah also, because by means of this arouses your soul. You know who you're serving. Moshiach, which is not the case in the days of the Mashiach. That's what we have to do now. We have to work, refine the bad, avoid the bad, know how to refrain from connecting to the bad, and we have to increase the good in order to shine up the world and remove the darkness, which is not the case. That's now, but in the days of the Mashiach, after Shlemus Avodas Habirurim, by means of after there won't be any more refinement. We're talking about the later stages of the days of the Mashiach. Then there won't be any more of these false religions, and people will worship only the Creator, only the Creator, only the Creator, according to the Torah. They won't worship any people, and people won't think about going to heaven. The people will only, the whole world will be interested only in the Creator. Sheyufra, then there will be separated the bad from the good. Lo yeh esek Torah, there won't be any more doing Torah and the commandments in order to refine the world. There will still be Torah and the commandments. It's never going to stop. But the whole reason we'll do Torah and the commandments is liyichud yichudim milyonim yoter, to make higher unities of God. Hakol al yedei penimis Torah. Everything will be according to the secrets of the Torah and the commandments, but kavanot elyona, with upper intentions. So now when you put on tefillin, it's not to draw light into the world in order to get rid of the bad. The world will already be illuminated. There won't be any bad. The purpose will be to make the world higher. That was really what Adam was supposed to have done when he was created. He was put into a place called Gan Eden. Gan Eden is loosely translated heaven. He was in heaven on earth, and his job was to make the world better, higher, but he didn't. He how do you say, imbibed, he internalized the bad. He wasn't supposed to do that. In the future, it's going to be, we'll see clearly what is bad and what is good, and no human being will want to do what's bad. People will only serve the creator of the universe, all mankind, through the 7 Noahide commandments. All the Jewish people will do all of the Torah. Then what will they do? It'll be attacked. Then they'll be interested only in the godly side of it. They'll do the commandments, but the main emphasis is that's only going to be a thin veneer, a thin vessel to contain what God really put us here for, like the first man, to make the world more godly. Then we'll do the commandments according to all these deep secrets. Ela shagam az, but also you'll have to know what the laws are of pure and etc. There won't be that you can do whatever you want to. You have to know what is forbidden, but there won't be such an urge, or there won't be any urge to do what's bad. Of laniglos, but the revelation, revealed parts of the Torah, they will be revealed to every Jew. As soon as the Jew learns it, then the Torah, it'll be automatic. You won't have to learn it, right? Like everybody, every human being, the most stupid person in the United States knows that you have to drive on the right side of the road. You don't drive on the left side of the road. And the person with the lowest possible IQ in England knows that over there you drive on the left side of the road. That's just obvious. Nobody's going to forget it. That's the way it's going to be when the Moshiach actually starts to succeed in what he's doing. Then everybody, all the Jews automatically will know what's right and wrong. Non-Jews will also know what's right and wrong. The idea is, now that you know what's right and wrong, like you on the street, so you know, okay, I know to drive on the right side of the street. So where are you going? So I know what to do, right? But where are you going to go? You have to do something. That everyone is unique. Everyone has their own unique purpose in the world, and everyone will do their purpose. They'll all be on the right side of the road, and they'll serve the Creator in the way the Creator created them. Yesh Lomer, we can say that's going to be the days of the Mashiach. Okay, what's this got to do with the Leviathan? The fish killing the ox, and the laws like Shammai and Hillel and 3 more cities of refuge. First of all, the cities of refuge, that's really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Cities of refuge, that makes absolutely no sense. What are the cities of refuge? Where accidental murderers will run. In the days of the Mashiach, there's going to be 3 more cities? What, there's going to be more accidental murders? What's that? How is that going to be? We just finished saying there's not going to be any bad. And now we're saying that there's going to be more places for bad people to run to. Yeah, let's explain this. We can say, this is the difference between the 6 cities of refuge nowadays and the 3 more that are going to be added on in the days of the Mashiach. Mitzvahs are miklat, the commandment of the cities of refuge. Kashura is attached to tikkun chet eitz hadas. This is connected to fixing up the sin of the tree of knowledge. When Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, what did he do? He became an egoist, an egotist. He started thinking and feeling himself. Somehow or other, man, especially man's body, became the most real thing in existence. More real than his fellow man, more real than even God. That's the sin of the tree of knowledge. Life became any other people's lives became less valuable or became worthless. And as a result, people's lives themselves became worthless. Because of the sin of the tree of knowledge, that's how we get into murder and the depression and aggression and addictions. Hashorish l'kol hachatayim, the sin of the tree of knowledge. The other tree is the tree of life. The tree of knowledge of good and evil means that you don't want life. You don't want to eat from the tree of life. You're having no access. You're thinking about what's good and bad to me, what I want. It's internalized. To have good and bad objectively, it's good. You see what's good, you see what's bad, right? You see that there are such things as bad things in the world, and you don't do it. Right? You get a reward for not doing what's bad. But as soon as he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then all of a sudden he became like God. He decided what's good and bad. This is the source of all sins. Like it says in the Midrash, Lama Nikoresh, why was man evicted? Why was he evicted, kicked out of Gan Eden after the sin? Al Shevi Mita, because he brought death, the Doros, to the future generations. He really should have died immediately. Shirachamta, Allah, the God, you had mercy on him, but Garashto, and you evicted him like a person that kills someone accidentally, kills someone by negligence, if you want to call it. Shagorem Golam Makomo, he has to leave his place. He goes into exile to Ari Mikla. So Adam being evicted from heaven on earth, he was evicted from the Garden of Eden. That he was evicted from this perfect place that he was in, that's like the murderer, accidental murderer, being evicted from the place where he lives, and he has to run to the city of refuge, or he's finished. What's this got to do with it? Let's see. Harizeh Kashur, this is what the tikkun of all sins, fixing all sins. You do, it's known, Shekol Chet V'Avan, that any sort of a sin, that all sins, it's known that, not too far, you do, it's known that the whole idea of sin or transgression is something like killing someone by accident. The smallest sin, lying, stealing, cheating. It's like killing somebody. Why? Like it says, Shofech Dam Adam Ba'adam. It says with Adam, with Noah, when he came out from the ark. So it says, if a person spills blood of his own, this is like a person committing suicide. It's a forbidden thing to commit suicide. It's a big punishment to commit suicide. People commit suicide thinking it can't be anything worse than this world. But the fact is, unfortunate fact is that there is. A person commits suicide, it's a terrible sin. Okay. You can't blame a person for it, because nevertheless, that's a fact. So it says, but the language is pouring the blood of a man in a man. This is the idea of the pouring of the blood of the man of holiness, right? The man into the man of unholiness, right? Well, it says that Isaiah, he saw a vision of God sitting on a throne. It says right in the beginning that man is created in God's image. So we have God, and then he created man in his own image. So it can switch around. If God created man, and man is the image of God, so a person can very easily misunderstand that and think, right, because I'm in the image of God. So if I'm in the image of God, so maybe I can do what God did. God created a man in his image. So I'm like God, so I'm going to create God in my image. Who's the creator over here? God created me in his image, so I'm a creator, right? So that idea, that's what happened when Adam ate from the tree. Suddenly he became an egotist. He thought, wow, I'm God. I'm really real. And I don't feel God is real. I feel myself being real. And that's what's called pouring the blood of the, so to speak, man, namely God. God is also called the man of war, man. God, the man, God speaks, right? He spoke to everybody, spoke to Adam. So he's like a man. God That's the man of holiness into the man of what's called impurity. Ella Shazeo, but often this is in a way of shagaga, by accident. Why is it by accident? Shaloba Ratzono, he didn't want to do it, ki Ratzono Amiti, because the true desire of every single Jew is to do all the commandments and to keep away from all the sins. That's the true will. Why is it the Jews do sins? Anytime a Jew does a sin, it's always belidat. It's always, want to call it an accident. You want to call it the negligence, but not on purpose. And Adam, like we learned in this week's Torah portion, and Adam over Avera, a person cannot do a sin. A Jew cannot do a sin unless unless there comes into him temporary insanity. And this temporary insanity can last from the moment he's born until the moment he dies, but it's still temporary. That's why they have to have reincarnation. It also, and the main thing is that God, in Aliyado, it says that when does a person have to run to one of these cities of refuge? That it just happened, God arranged the things, that this person all of a sudden did X and you happened to be there and you happened to be negligent, you were chopping wood and you didn't take care that the head of the axe was secured properly and it flew off. In any case, it says, Nora Alilas al Bnei Adam. Everything that happens, God makes it happen, and God arranged this whole thing. You should have been more careful. You should have done your part. How do you fix this up? A person has to run to a city of refuge. A city of refuge. Shalom is this hints at the Torah. The city of refuge, the city of sanctuary, this is the Torah. Like the rabbis say, Divrei Torah kultus, like it says, the words of the Torah, they save you. Torah, that the Torah saves a person that works in it and protects him and, rescues him from the one who wants to kill him, the avenger. Who's the avenger? The devil. Who's the devil? How do we get devil over here? This is the Yetzer Hara. This is our own evil, selfish impulse. What is the devil? Right, the devil is always pictured as this thing with horns on it and something like that. I don't know, maybe it could be, I don't know, but that's the devil is our best friend, the devil. Another name for the devil is me. What I want, I think, I know, I can't, that's all. The Satan means to make a person take a detour, derailed. The Satan is a power inside of us that says, wow, I want that thing. I'm going to go for it. I don't care what God says. I know what I want. And you really want it, or you really whatever. The power of death, basically. That's what happened when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, is that he internalized this egotism. And we could see it even crept. That's all why all the religions of the world are all bad, because they're all egotistical. I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to get saved. I'm not going to get burn in hell. You're going to burn in hell because you don't believe like me. And it's all, the whole thing is just one big fear trip and hate trip. And that comes from the tree of the knowledge. That's the devil. The power of death, hatred. But not only that, she'ela, she'al yada, by means of this, by city of refuge, it fixes up the shfichas dam, the blood that was poured, and from the man of holiness, like it says. Why? Because the Torah fixes it up. The Torah is the city of refuge. It gives a new life into a person, the living Torah. In the days of the Moshiach, after the world is fixed up, then this whole idea of the cities of refuge will be in a totally different way. It'll be in a totally different way. It won't be in a way of such a, how do you say, running for such a terrible negative thing. It's known that in the days of the Mashiach, when there's finished all the work of the Jewish people to separate the good from the bad, and the world reaches what's called its completeness as it was before the Adam sinned, then there still will be bad in the world. Therefore, there will be the necessity of these cities of refuge. Why? Because even though no one's going to do the bad, but there'll be cities of refuge, which is namely the Torah, in order to negate any possibility of negative things happening as a result from the fact that there is bad in the world, just like it was before. What happened when Adam was put in the world? Before the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that tree was there. That tree was there of bad and good. So if so, the cities of refuge will not be so much to fix up things that were actually done, but rather to eliminate the possibility that bad things could be done. And this will be done by adding 3 more cities, as we're going to talk. Okay, should we say? Let's go. Let's look at the end. This will be by means of adding 3 more cities. Hosaf Sug Chadash, a new type of cities of refuge. There won't be cities of refuge from people who did bad. There will be cities of refuge to reveal a new type of good, a new level of the Torah, a new aspect of godliness. That's the whole idea of the new Torah that's going to come from me. Revelation of the reasons, the secrets, the mysteries of the Torah, the godliness, the life in every single word, every commandment of the Torah, that since that the inside of the Torah is above from any connection to good and bad, therefore it will save a person. It will, how do you say, that to absorb a person in such a way that there won't be any possibility of doing bad. It's almost like saying, like, let's say, for instance, in the school systems of today, this is what the Rebbe wanted to do. If the school systems of today, they stressed the greatness of God and how God gives us life, that the Rebbe wanted to say that every morning when you wake up in the morning, you wanted all the children, all the non-Jewish children, to say, thank you, God, that you gave me back my soul. In other words, God exists and the soul is very precious. Life is precious. If so, I guarantee you, if that was done and people realized how precious life is and how miraculous it is and how good it is, that would automatically cut down drastically suicides and addictions in the world. And for sure, it wouldn't come into anybody's mind to make abortions or homosexuality or these things that are against life, that don't produce life. Just valuing life, just revealing what is good, automatically will eliminate 99% of the bad. Crime, the thievery, what is it? Let's say cruelty. Cruelty. We see, I mean, I don't want to stress on this, but it's just such an amazing thing. The Rebbe really stressed this, what we can learn from World War II. The German people were the most advanced, you want to call it civilized, intellectual, the progressive nation in the world, as far as philosophy goes also. They had philosophies with tremendous, amazing thinkers that influenced the whole world. And they became experts at murder and maiming in ways that had never been heard of before. Right? No one suspected that it would come from them, such a thing, to make such sophisticated bombs and planes, and that their soldiers were so tremendously devoted and inspired and self-sacrificing just to kill people and to maim and to destroy and to cause heartbreak and it all came because no one was there to tell how good. The Rebbe said if the 7 Noahide commandments would have been taught before the Holocaust, it could have been that the whole entire World War II could have been avoided. And what the Germans did, by the way, is not much better than what the Japanese did. Oh, they were tremendously cruel. And they were also tremendously sophisticated and intelligent. And we can say that the Ari Miklat nowadays, and that's the 6 cities nowadays, that corresponds to the 7 orders of the Mishnah. The Mishnah, that in them was explained all the details of permissible and forbidden and etc. The Mishnah tells what's good, what's bad. But the 3 cities that's going to be in the future, The three cities, that corresponds to what's called Chachma, Bina, V'das. That's an arousal of the triple Torah, namely the Pnimius inside of the Torah, the godliness of the Torah. And let's even make this a little more sweet, that the three cities that are going to be added on in the days of the Mashiach, these, it says, are going to be the cities of, God promised Abraham 10 nations, the land of 10 nations, and we only got 7. To this very day, we did not get the 3 lands of the Keni, the Kenian, the Kenizi, and the Kadmoni. God promised that when God made a covenant with Abraham, so he said, you're going to get all the 10 lands. And to this very day, it's like almost 4,000 years later, we have not received this promise that God gave to Abraham. That's what it says in the Torah, that if God increases your boundaries, so it's known that the conquering of this 7 nations, this is the purification of what's called the emotions of God in the world, that this is the service nowadays, conquering these and conquering the 3 nations. That's in the soul. This refers to refining the upper 3 aspects of the soul, which is called Chachma, Bina, Dad, intellect. That then there will be revealed that's the new Torah, a totally new understanding and appreciation and feeling the godliness in every commandment and every word of the Torah, as we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Let's turn this thing off right here.